welcome to another episode of Christian Men Unscripted. You guys, this is kind of awesome because you're forcing us on location, and the location happens to be my house. So this is one of the best episodes I've ever been a part of because
we drove 30
I didn't have to drive across town. Yeah. You know, it's been awesome. Anyway, I'm John Harney here with Alan Underwood, Seth Luzon, and next to me right here is a kid by the name of Nolan Robertson, and we're going to introduce him in a second. He goes to college with my daughter. They met in London or Paris?
London.
Yeah, they met in London, which is crazy.
It's romantic.
Yeah, it's romantic. Yeah. And by the time this is aired, this is, I think, December 10th or something like
Somewhere
that
in December.
Today here. But a few weeks ago, him and I went on a hike, and this kid, I'm just going to tell you guys, he's like, oh, I love your daughter. Do you think I can marry her? And I was like, no, dude. Like,
no.
What? He's like, can I get you blessed? And I was like, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. You know, so it kind of went that way. You know?
That's how it started.
Here. But here he is. Still here. Here he is.
He's like,
no, I'm just kidding. He's like awesome kid. Comes from like the best family. Loves his dad to death, his mom to death, his sisters. They're all super awesome. We don't have a topic here necessarily. However, I want to ask Nolan because he also told me, and he's in the process of testing for Sacramento PD to be a cop. And here, Alan and I, we did this cop thing.
Seth didn't.
Yeah.
Seth didn't.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
But anyway, Nolan, just real quick, you can introduce yourself and then maybe kind of share a little bit, like what you're thinking on, like why would you even want to be a cop? Let's start there, and then we'll get into the ministry.
So where's the office? Back at Division? Yeah, in the office, baby.
Nowadays is different than when we started. It's a different world.
Totally. So first off, I'm Nolan. Thanks for having me on the show. I've been listening for quite some time and stuff.
Also a fan, super fan.
Super fan right here.
Forgot to tell people, we ran a competition, and one of our lucky fans was able to come and be on the show.
Your daughter's
Nolan,
congratulations. Yeah, thank you.
He actually started dating her because he was like, I want to get close to John.
Yeah, I drove 6 hours all the way up here and was like, this is it. This is
dream come true.
Anyway, so I'm from California. You can take that however you may like that, but so yeah, in the process currently applying to Sacramento PD and some other departments around there. Go to college studying biochemistry, which you might be thinking,
good segue.
What are you doing, trying to be a cop and studying biochemistry, but also through that process I'm having a minor in forensic science, and so that kind of exposed me to the more science background of law enforcement and kind of what they do behind the scenes a little bit more than kind of boots on the ground stuff. But kind of circling back to your question, why law enforcement? And I think I have a desire to serve, and as a Christian man, I think we all kind of have that inner desire to go out and to serve others, serve our household, serve your wife or girlfriend, or, well, mainly it's my girlfriend, but your wives and stuff, and your kids. And, I've had multiple jobs in the past, and all of those have led me, and my Christian belief has led me to serve others. And there's no other job that's like being a cop, that you can really serve other people, and when they're at their worst time, when their family member's hurting, when their family member has just been brutally murdered, and every single day is different, and another day to serve someone else.
It's funny, dude.
That's the greatest answer. That's good. He's marrying your daughter. That's awesome.
What's funny is because
you'll allow it. Yeah,
I allow it.
Well, here's what. So him and I were talking because I was kind of sharing, like, dude, believe it or not, like, it really is a ministry, and there are other countries and stuff, they call it the ministry of police, the ministry of whatever, right? However, what happens when these guys get into these jobs, which I have to caution him, how many friends have we had that have killed themselves? I mean, we can get some pretty serious stuff pretty fast. And or how quickly does that I guess the romantic imagery of being the super cop out on the street, that romanticism goes away in about 2 flat seconds when you're waving at some little kids in the neighborhood and they all flip you off and they're like, hey, screw you, pig. You know what I mean?
True.
And then, the very first call you go on, a lady calls because her husband's beating her up, but then as soon as you try to go hands on him, she's trying to hit you with a bottle of, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, wait, this ain't as like romantic and cool as I thought it was going to be. This sucks. I'm covered in vomit and spit.
Or a cutting board, like one of our friends got hit with a cutting board.
Oh, Kyle. And by the way, Kyle used to listen to this show. I don't know if he still does. Yeah. He took he was in field training, wasn't he?
Yeah.
took a cutting board to the face. He has all steel plates in his whole face underneath on the X-ray and
Trying
stuff.
to help her.
Trying to help that lady that ended up hitting him in the face. Yeah,
And it's especially when you're in field training, you wouldn't expect something like that. You should obviously go through
just
training,
don't know,
but you just
though.
don't know. You're like, I'm trying to help her. I'm trying to arrest him for beating her, and then she smacks you upside the head with a handle on a cutting board.
Oh, just craziness.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is, it's like, how do you share? Even like my wife, like I said, this kid was like, oh, I'd like to marry your daughter. My wife is like, I don't want my daughter married to a cop. I'm like, what the heck? You were married to 30 years. You've been married to a cop. But I know what she's saying.
I know exactly. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's hard, dude. It's not as easy as people think. It's definitely not as like, it was fun.
Yeah.
Funnest job you'll ever do in the world.
You make good friends. You get good people. I mean, I met John 25 years ago. We've been friends ever since. You get a good community. It's a community, like you said. And I mean, nowadays it's different though. It's different than like when we first came on. People really liked us and.
Oh,
like
then 9/11 happened.
Lunch. They'd be like, "Oh, we paid for your lunch, this and that." I'm like,
All
"Oh,
the
you don't
time.
have to do that." And
Yeah.
now people are like, "You said, if you this and that," and you're like, "Dang,
So
this
you
is,
gotta pay
this
for
is
my
at
lunch
church." They're
now.
saying,
Exactly.
at church, they're like, "Oh, you're a cop, f you." No, I'm just kidding. No,
Nobody
I
wants
think
to.
it feel like it's coming back a little bit though, because I've seen more pro police stuff, but it's what do you say, secular, singular? Well, no, calendar, like it goes in rotation.
Oh,
Secular.
Secular, yeah.
Cyclical.
We're not-
Cyclical.
Go,
Cyclical.
where's Grace?
Sad.
Go get
Cyclical,
Grace. She'll
okay.
know.
yeah.
You messed. You just got something in my head.
Shut up,
Cyclical.
Seth.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Cyclical.
It's you just
Cyclical.
say that's
Is that the word?
That's
Yeah.
what he said.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like I said cyclical. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so listen,
I was
we
a
know
cop.
we have.
I don't know.
Well, so we know we have listeners that are first responders that are, whether they're cops, fire, in the medical stuff. We also have listeners that work in the ER. We've heard from them and work in trauma and things like that. It is interesting, and you always end up when we go into these conversations. It is an interesting world of individuals who are kind of just consistently exposed to the dark side of humanity, right? And so I think you asked me that question, Nolan, while we were hiking or something, about like how do you kind of like use your Christian ministry in that environment, or I'm butchering whatever you asked me. But I have shared a lot of times, like, I go to do like a retirement speech or something, and when there's guys who don't have Christ in their life, I'm like, I don't understand how they do this without becoming alcoholics, and what you see is a lot of alcoholics, a lot of divorce, a lot of this.
Yeah.
But I think you see that across the board, not just in policing, but just high stress jobs. Not that other people, not to diminish anyone who's just trying to work. Ministry in and of itself is high stress. Unless you just give it up to God and say, how can I be used? And so I don't know. I try to caution Nolan on that. Like, I don't know how to tell you to really dig into your faith, not buy into the identity of a police officer. But the flip side is the heavy badge thing. The flip side is I still would rather see you be compassionate about it. How would you even try to talk about the balance on that for any career or job?
Well, for me, when I was like, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I don't think it was my first choice to be a cop. It was the only choice I had, as we talked about last episode, where I wasn't the most educated, I wasn't most this. Joined the military, and that was the next process. And I did it for 23 years. And when I got out, I'm like, oh, I survived. That's about it for me. But I had so many other things that I did. And meeting you was one of the what's the word I'm looking for?
Best
The
moments of my
greatest thing.
life.
The greatest thing ever.
Probably one of the greatest things ever happened in your
Greatest
life.
thing in the world.
Next to marrying my wife,
meeting you. But I had my family. My family was my number one at the time. I took care of my kids. I coached baseball. I did so many things that when I went to work, I didn't think about work at all. I thought about what I had to do with coaching baseball, what I had to do with playing basketball, doing all the things I did. I had so many other hobbies, which really probably could have got me killed. Now that I think about it, because my mind wasn't always there. But as time went on, it did weigh on me, because I told my wife this. And I'd say around year 18 or 19, there was a point where I could not get up to go to work. I couldn't breathe. Like the day before I go back to work, I had like I couldn't breathe. I'm like, I can't breathe. I got to go back to work. Then Friday would come and I have the weekend off. I could breathe again. Yeah. So that's when I knew it was about time to. I did about 5 or 6 more years, but it was getting close. Yeah. But you don't know it, but it does weigh on you, seeing things and doing things. But just always have, like, God. I didn't have that the first 15, 16 years. I had a knowing, but I didn't have that. If I would have had that, I think it would have been a better career for me. So I don't know where I went with that, but
Well, honestly though, it's funny you say that, because it's so more Nolan right now is just listening to this stuff, because he's obviously, for me, I picture if you're going to do this, okay, the academy, training, there's stresses on you. But then later on in life, I have so many memories of 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, phone ringing. Hey, so-and-so just is in UMC trauma. And then they died. They got killed. They either got shot or got in a car crash, or so-and-so, hey, are you up? Hey, so-and-so just killed themselves or whatever. And you're like, dude, so you see a young guy coming into that, and what you don't realize is there's decades of that ahead, you know?
Yeah.
However, like when my wife says that, I'm like, yeah, but honestly, I wouldn't change it because it's still the most fun and the neatest group of people, because adversity forges tighter friendships and forges kind of a better life almost. Like the bitterness really makes the sweeter, I guess. I don't know how to.
Right. Yeah.
I don't mean to be weird. I'm just.
We're at a loss for words today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so from my perspective as non cool, manly guy here.
100% true.
Very true. But this way, our whole listening audience can enjoy.
Because most people don't really like you guys. They only listen for me, and that's just the fact. Thank you guys for listening to these buffoons. Sorry, I'm sorry.
That's fair.
No, it's not true. But my perspective is someone. If you're going into those things, don't have those rose-colored glasses. It's going to be great. You expect suffering. You want to, like, anywhere you go, you need to expect that there's going to be opposition. There's going to be people who are going to speak badly about you, whether it's your own coworkers or it's the people that you're trying to serve. They're not going to receive what you're trying to give 85% of the time. And sometimes there's confusion involved. They don't know what you're trying to do. They don't see the danger they're in, and so they react and respond. And it's the same way in churches. It's the same way anywhere. People will perceive something that's not true from your side. They'll perceive you're doing something, but they will respond in a way that they're saying that perception is true when it's not at all the case. And so to go into it expecting I am going to suffer in some way. I am going to have people who will misunderstand what I'm doing. They may even accuse me of things that I didn't do because I was trying to be helpful, and that's just a reality that's going to happen for you specifically, but also anyone that's in a job who's trying to love people and serve them is going to be attacked in some way. Whether it's because they are Christian and people don't like that because you're not going to party with them, or you're not gonna let them do something on the street that because of your character and your conviction, and so people might respond, your coworkers might respond in a negative way to that your Christian character and Christian witness. And so going into it understanding that I'm going to serve, but people will not see it that way. Mm-hmm. It's the same way as that Jesus said, if they kill me, what are they going to do to you guys? And that's the truth that we should experience and know is going to happen. When you go to Christian college, like you don't have any of that, and so sometimes you have this idealistic perception of what it's going to be. People are going to see that I'm trying to serve, but what they're actually seeing is that this person thinks they're better than me.
You see that all the time.
And so you gotta be aware of those things as well.
Well, I think couple responses to that. One, I love my college, Grand Canyon University, Lopes up. But I guess an issue of that, going to a smaller Christian school, is that small, big Christian school.
I was going to say world's largest Christian school, but that's fine.
But I grew
still
up
is a microcosm.
Mm-hmm, I grew up like in a small Christian high school too.
Yeah.
And so kind of having that, what would you say, microcosm?
Yeah.
Never heard of that word in my life.
I'm not even sure if it's the right word.
Me either.
Well, no.
Okay.
Good job.
Well,
thank you.
So she gets it.
I probably used it wrong, but keep going.
Anyways, and I think I'm being a senior, going to graduate in April, and that's a question that me and my friends and everyone around me is asking is like, man, it's been so awesome here, and we're about to step in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Especially me, pursuing something that in law enforcement, right? You're going to see a lot of hate towards yourself and towards other people. But even beyond that, let's say Grace, who was just on last episode, and what she's going to face in her future job, and
sure,
how people view her differently, both good and bad, in the workplace, and having that foundation, I think is really, really key. So I guess kind of to transition a little bit for you guys, I just kind of want to ask, like, what was your foundation like before going into your job? Like, you can be super real, like if it wasn't good, it was great, you know, and how, you know, that really prepared you for your career and for those people who honestly, you know, might not like you because you say you're a Christian, or who might hold you to a higher standard and you fail them, and how you can go about navigating that.
It's funny, we've talked about this quite a bit, honestly, even the reasoning behind the podcast to get going on this thing, but Alan and I came from totally different backgrounds, right? And so, yeah, I came in from a family as a Christian, but a family of law enforcement. On my dad's side, I'm like, my grandfather, after a career in the military, had done constable and U.S. Marshal stuff. My dad, every uncle, every male. So I stepped into a different expectation, but I kind of was already aware of it because I grew up with my dad as a cop and all my uncles as cops and stuff. So I kind of already knew. You know, what's funny is I already knew that there was sort of like that fun social side of it, because I had memories of my dad's squad was always over for poker night and always on camping trips. And then I had, you know what I mean? And cousins that were already cops and stuff. So I kind of came into it more just kind of like expecting the fun social side of things. And honestly, I had to try to bring my faith with me, and I failed at it a lot because I kind of walked right into that job and was, if I'm being, it sounds there, I hate to say it out loud, I felt like I was as good as anybody at it. Does that make sense? Oh, wow. And so I ended up, and that sounds arrogant.
No, but it makes sense though.
But it's like, it just felt like this was just naturally what I was called to do. If that, like a duck to water, like no big deal. And going to these specialized units and doing all the fun, I got to do all the fun stuff like that. Again, going back to the reason why we even did this podcast, because Alan and I have these conversations, that was almost to the demise of my family. You and I kind of shared that with you on the hike as well. Like, it makes me a little bit nervous that my daughter might potentially be married to a police officer, right? Because he's not hired yet. Because I was a Christian, but there were times where my priorities were, well, you can't see it on camera, but Narcotic Street Team 8 kind of stuff, which I still love, Lightning Force 8, right? We're the highest producing, nonstop violent action, good time, Narcotic Street Team, best that there is, go into every meeting, and I just kind of like felt like, whether it was true or not, by the way, doesn't matter, felt like we are the best at this, period. So guess what the priorities turned into? Number one was that we're the best, let's get it done. Number two was still probably the mission, then maybe my family, then God, then my Christian walk, if that makes any sense. And here I am, a Christian dude, and that's part of, and then Alan was almost the opposite. You already said it. Like, as far as trying to stay with your family, be part of your family, you kind of...
Yeah, I grew up in a broken home. My dad was in and out of jail. My dad, drugs. I love my dad. He passed away, but I had a good relationship with him. I learned a lot from him. He was a Vietnam vet. My mom, and I don't know if she listens, she was an alcoholic for a long time. I left the house when I was 18 to get out. I was like, I got to go. I joined the military. I was in the Navy. And then when I got out, I didn't know what to do because, I joke about, I didn't pay attention to school. I hated school. I still don't like school. I would never go back to school. So for those that like school, I think it's great. My kids love school. My son's very educated. My daughter's great. But I was like, well, what's the next step for me out of the military? The only thing was law enforcement or firefighter. So I tested for Metro, and I was like, I didn't pass. Got like a 95. I'm like, oh, I guess I passed. And they called me, and I'm like, I guess I'm going to be a cop. So I didn't jump into it with anything. And I remember getting out of field training and getting in a police car my first time, and I'm like, well, what the heck am I doing here? I'm like, exactly. I don't belong here. I was in trouble a lot too as a kid. I mean, I was in and out of juvie a few times. So I was like, I got better as I went along. And then my son was born. And I want to do canine. I want to do all kinds of things. I'm like, but when my son was born, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay in patrol. I'm going to be a part of his life because I didn't have that with mine. My family's great. I love my mom. I love my dad, but they weren't there. They were divorced. They were partying. My mom was partying. My dad was always out. So I'm like, I'm going to make sure that I'm every step of the way with my kids, whether it's dance for my daughter when I had my daughter or baseball with my son. So I did patrol my whole career. And that was also a detriment because my son, I hammered him. I mean, I was hard on him. I was like a Marine Corps drill sergeant sometimes with him because I was always there. I coached his baseball team. I remember one time, I've shared it on the show. I don't think that episode came out, but I'm coaching baseball and one of my friends wants to get his son in Little League. He's like, I'm going to come watch your son's game. You're coaching. I'm like, yeah, I'm coaching. I'm nice to every kid on the team, but my son is in the outfield and he's not throwing the ball. I'm flying off the handle in the dugout as a police officer. Throw the effing ball. I'm cursing and like I come down and he's holding on to the ball. You don't know where to throw it.
Dude.
I'm like, throw the ball. And he comes in. I'm like, you need to throw the ball. You cost us 3 runs. This is T-ball, mind you. And I remember he's crying, and my buddy comes up and he's like, I just thought I should call CPS on you, man. I was like, yeah, you're right. So, I mean, I got better, but I had to learn that too because I overdid it because I was a police officer. And I feel like I became better as a police officer as time, but I wasn't for me at the time. And I'm just, when I retired, it was like, I made it. I survived. I didn't kill anybody accidentally, and I did not get killed.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I see stuff on the news and I'm like, I sent you that text about the guy who shot the wrong person.
Yeah.
It's so sad. It's like, these are decisions that you're going to have to make. And I wasn't prepared. I should have prepared more. He was more prepared. So you kind of have that balance that you can learn from.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like you're
Obviously a pretty
educated,
smart kid, yeah.
very smart. I wasn't. I just kind of jumped in and was like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I didn't do anything cool like you guys. I mean, not like dangerous. Okay. I did cool stuff.
Yeah, like what?
Like, he's a college athlete, dude. That's pretty cool in and of itself.
Yeah. I lived in Chicago.
Yeah,
and
he
cool
did
streets
urban,
of Chicago.
He did urban ministry. You're talking about Scotch tape right here. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I'm a rapper.
Yeah.
Which I haven't written anything in a long time, but that's okay. All right, so I went to public school growing up, and that was very formative for me because similar to John, I knew everything. I went to church on for youth group, went to church on Sundays, and I knew all the answers. But when I was at school, it was they'd be like, "Who the heck was that?" Like he goes to church. They would never know because every other word was a swear word. Every other I tried to I had like 5 or 6 girlfriends at a time in different areas,
about that before,
and so that was my thing.
That went down.
Hey. We're back. All right. But
That should be recording.
all right, good. All right.
Technical difficulties. Don't worry
as
about
per
that.
usual.
Yeah. So, but then when I finally was like convicted that like I'm taking my relationship with Jesus, I'm not taking it seriously. I knew God would forgive me, and that was what I was holding out to. God will forgive me, and then I finally went on a mission trip to Brooklyn when I was about 17, and heard this kid say, "Well, if this guy finds out I'm a Christian, then he'll beat me up." And I was like, "This isn't China. This is New York. This is the United States," and that really convicted me. And I was like, "Well, how would I respond to that situation?" And so I decided to take my relationship with Jesus more seriously. And being in a place where there weren't very many Christians, it was formative because it helped kind of solidify my belief. That in the midst of unbelief and people doing their thing and me trying not to do those things anymore, it kind of solidified that I'm a Christian and this is who I am, and it gave me confidence in who I was, even though I had not previously been in that kind of lifestyle. And so, it's an important reality. But there are times when you get in, like I went to Christian college, and then you get into the workforce, and specifically in a church setting, and then you see like, oh, people don't believe what they say they believe, or they go to church and it's like they have no idea what the Bible even says, and they don't open their Bible at all, and then they have all these grand opinions about what should happen, and it's like, well, you need to follow Jesus, you need to know what he says, and then you get some people who are saying you need to stop talking about those things, or you need to talk more about this, or you can't be opening the church for this or doing that thing, and then you get that kind of pushback in my field, and that's a very discouraging thing, because it's like, how long have you been a Christian? And you've been a 1-year-old Christian for 50 years, and you have no idea. And so there are those kind of things where you start to get, you start to see that when you're in that, when you're in Sacramento, you go to church and you start going to Bible study, and you're like, you don't know anything about these things, or if you go like, oh, I'm a Christian, other cops were Christians, and you'll be like, oh, you just went to church, or went to and you said, and you believe the same thing I believed. God will forgive me. I'll do whatever I want. And
that's how I used to think.
Dude, I'm being honest. That was a big part of how I lived, especially for many years. Like I said, I literally wake up and have to praise God, thank you for preserving my marriage in spite of my life and actions.
Well, that's the thing. When we first got on, and you'll hear it too, they're like, oh, you'll be divorced. You're married? Oh, you'll be divorced. And we both stayed married the whole time, so I think it was a blessing.
We have many friends divorced, ended up suicidal, all these issues. It sounds scary. Matter of fact, let me ask Nolan real fast, because his dad, your mom and dad, just these wonderful people, did a great job raising you guys. His sister is an attorney for police up in Northern California and stuff, which is amazing. like, what is your parents? What is your dad in particular? His dad is like educated, banking, Mr. Fancy Pants. Yeah, you heard me, Scott. And
I think that's what my son's going to be.
But then like now all of a sudden he's like, wait, my son's going to be a cop. You know what I mean? Because I had a cousin who also experienced, dad was like an executive and all this stuff. And one of my younger cousins was like, I'm going to be a cop. And he was. And at first the family was mad at me. I was like, I didn't tell him to be a cop. He's the same family. We're all from
Is
the
his
same
family
family.
mad at you as well?
No, I don't know. Let's ask. What are your thoughts? Because, and by the way, full disclosure, my uncle and cousin and stuff, they were super proud of him, and he did a career, and they loved that he did it, even though his whole life he was educated to do something totally different. You know what I mean? Like, what does dad say? What does your mom think? What are your, this is a career field you're pursuing we're saying all this negative-ish things.
No, there's a lot of positive too. Let me tell you that, because my life wouldn't be where it is right now without the police department. I thank God for it every day. I would never, I wouldn't change anything.
Agreed.
And my family is so much better off for it too.
Agreed.
So,
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But I'm gonna say good. Go ahead.
Okay. What does mom and dad think? How's the family on this whole thing?
First off, I would say they might hate you just a little bit, just because, it's like, I mean, obviously I've been super blessed to get to know you and get to see all these cool things. I mean, you guys can kind of see the stuff behind here. But I would say they're both kind of go back and forth, between like, man, like, are you sure this is what you really want to do? But, I know I've been super blessed. I've grown up in a, loving household. I've been super fortunate not to have like a mom that's, an alcoholic, or a dad that's,
You sure Michelle is? Are you sure? No, I'm totally kidding. Your parents are awesome. Sorry, lady.
But no, I know they're scared, and I know it's super scary. And I know even Grace, she definitely has her worries too. But, through all of it, I know that they're going to support me. I know my sister, and I know, my cousins and stuff, we're all super close, and I know they all support me through whatever I do. It's been all the way through here now, like through college, through everything that I've learned, and internships and all of that. And, I know that they'll continue to support me and love me, and, support cops. They love cops, so that's good. Even though I'm from California, they don't, hate cops. Okay, not everyone does. All right, not everyone does.
Well, if you look at the map, it's pretty conservative now.
Oh, and where he lives it's pretty neat. But okay, but so they support you. You're saying that, I get it. But I will, full disclosure, kind of like how Seth is really nice. See how especially you, a little bit mean, a little edgy. Alan, yeah. Why you gotta look around? Because
I see it.
Thank you. Yeah, but you know what sucks? It does suck, because as much as you better first and foremost always commit to Christ. First and foremost, always try to be loving and caring and willing to lay down your life for others and all these things. But you also have to have a mean side to you. You got to have a willingness to all of a sudden be willing to commit violence upon a person, and that's an unusual thing for people. The Colonel talked about that. As a matter of fact, in On Combat, On Killing, he literally has he has key phrases, killology and things, because of you have good people who are trained to do bad things. So you do kind of have to. Full disclosure, that's one of my wife's biggest things is she's like, Nolan is like the sweetest, nicest kid. Can he be the guy he has to be when it comes down to it? Because you feel bad even after you commit violence on somebody. I always did. So I think yes.
Well, because he's got a beard, he can.
Yeah.
I could.
This guy definitely
No
could.
chance.
Wow, Nolan's in on it too.
I know, that ain't cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I've never even asked you that, because there's an edge to that.
Right.
Sometimes guys, it just happens because after the first time they kind of got their butt kicked out on the street kind of a thing, all of a sudden they get jaded and now they are mean. And I don't want that to happen either. You don't want that to happen.
I was never I never got mean. Only to my family.
Exactly. Dude, exactly. It ends up coming out somewhere.
It does come out somewhere.
What's your thought?
It comes out.
Well, I know John and I were kind of talking about this yesterday on our little hike and stuff. How there's kind of have to be that balance of both, someone who's kind of nice, but also still has that mean side to them, has to click on, for cops. And that's, obviously super important for cops, is to be able to turn that thing on, but also to turn that off when you come home. And I think, part of me is, I would say, slightly worried about that, just because I haven't been, the most mean guy ever. I haven't really
just take some jujitsu classes. You'll be all right. Seriously.
Hey, I'm looking at Krav
I think
Maga.
it's great.
Yeah, do some Krav.
Like
I love Krav. Yeah.
But what I will say is that, I know that job entails that, and I mean, I would say even I got exposure to that this summer. I was summer camp baseball coach, yelling
you
at
guys have that in
some
common for
10-year-olds
that.
and stuff.
It's fun, right?
Yelling at some
I mean,
10-year-olds,
it was pretty fun. Like yelling at them, making them run.
Putting 10-year-olds in arm bars.
yeah.
Hey,
Yep.
there were quite a few tears shed. You know,
Beautiful. Good job. So you're good.
I did my job. But I think I know that you know, I might come off as the super nice guy, but I know I will be able to turn that on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I'm prepared. But you know, obviously, you don't really know until you get into it. You guys know
Until you
that.
get punched in the face.
Until you
Yeah,
get
until you
respond,
do that whole thing about a plan.
Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Well, you know what's
Mike
funny?
Tyson.
Actually, you just made me think of something. So I remember years ago, we had 2 Akitas. Do you remember my Akitas
Yes, I
back
do.
in the day?
Yeah, they were scary.
They were, and then one of them, this male, the great, I mean, beautiful, 100-pound, black, it was looked like a bear, scary looking Akita. And I was training them. So I trained them, by the way. Those are dogs you really, if you own one, train them, right? And so twice a day, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, I train this dog all the time. And I had a dog trainer coming over helping me. My neighbor, Dave Newton, awesome guy. He was Metro Canine. And he wasn't the one helping me, but he would also kind of encourage me as to how to do things. But I was asking the main dog trainer that I had all the time, like, I want him to be like an aggressive dog. How do I train him to be like that? And he was like, first of all, this dog is a pet. He said, and he has such a great disposition. Best dog I ever had in my whole life. Buster, he's okay. Kuma,
Poor
my
Buster,
Akita,
man.
greatest dog
Kick his
ever
Howard.
to live. God created this one dog. His name was Kuma. He was the greatest Akita, greatest dog ever. All right, anyway, had this great attitude. But he was actually a very sweet dog. So here he's a scary-looking dog. But you know, that dog trainer told me, he said, this is the most perfect. This is exactly what you want in an Akita. His temperament is amazing. We do not need to train him to be aggressive. Keep him sweet. Keep him obedient. He will be aggressive if he has to be. These dogs will naturally do it when they have to. Keep him nice. You want him to be nice. Somebody breaks in your house, I promise, this dog will do what this dog naturally does. And we actually got to see that. And it was dead truth. And I don't need to waste time with stories. The bottom line is he was this super sweet, super nice dog. But dude, half a second, he keyed in and he became this aggressive attack dog that, like, I didn't know he was. But it's like you would rather have that. And I think with a cop, you would rather have that as a... I love
I
it.
think
The
it's
Colonel
perfect.
talks about the sheepdog thing. You'd rather him be meek, mild, loving, giving.
Yep.
But they do have to be able to pull out the fangs.
And you can learn that. And like you said, Prof. McGraw.
Yeah. You can beat
whatever
people up with a smile on your face and be real nice about
do.
it. Like,
That's
I don't
true.
want
I
to do
did a
this
lot.
to you. This is you. You're doing this. Like spanking our kids. This hurts me more than it hurts you.
My favorite thing was when I was a cop, I was like, I gotta put you in these handcuffs, but I'm just, this is from, I gotta do it, and I take them right back off. They've been going in the back of the cop car. I'm like, oh, sorry.
No, my bad. Yeah, but then the next guy has to deal with that.
Yeah, that's on them.
No, we had great
But, like,
conversations with people.
Yeah, like I would, what did I? Oh, we'd pull people over, and I'd be like, I want to write like 2 tickets and see if I can get them to thank me. They'll be,
Yeah.
thank you, sir. I'm like, oh, you're
100%.
welcome.
Which you can do. You really can do
But
that.
I mean, obviously I needed to write tickets, but
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure you guys can, you know,
gotta be
attest to
nice.
this a little bit.
I should edit
But as
that
far
out.
as the paradigm shift, I don't know if that's the right term.
That sounds
Big word.
good, though.
That's
Sounds
a big
smart.
word, yeah.
It's good.
It's Grand Canyon education right there.
Yeah. As far as, you know, law enforcement and a lot of different changes, a lot of different culture changes, you know, that you guys have dealt with and seen throughout your whole career. And even you too, I'm sure you've seen it as well.
No, he hasn't.
Like, thanks for adding me in there, though. I appreciate it.
You're being nice. You're nice.
I'm sure you maybe have done it. Yeah.
But I would say now more than ever, you know, law enforcement has kind of changed in the fact that before it was like you see, you know, a cop and it's going to be that 6'5", 200-something pound guy who's going to like beat you up if you do something wrong, right? But now you still see those type of guys, right? Because law enforcement still, you know, draws those type of men, but they also draw, you know, other type of men. Kind of like
4
me
foot
that-
girls.
or
See,
4
I'm
foot
just
girls.
saying.
That's
Or
true.
Seth.
Yeah.
Or Seth.
Yeah.
He's probably tested. But yeah,
Although
come on.
he's bigger than me, I should stop.
So
Yeah,
I
you
guess
should.
just
Yeah,
what I'm
you
getting
better
at is,
watch
you
out.
know, there's definitely been a shift in law enforcement, and you know, I think there is definitely a place for guys like me who are maybe have a science background, I guess, but who are a little bit more not as aggressive, but can still be that presence and really intercept and even minister even more
Yeah.
to people, especially being a Christian, because sometimes you have that 6 foot tall guy who comes up and, you know, that person sees that person. They're like, well, I'm not going to like him. I'm not going to be nice to him. But I might come up with that smile on my face just because I keep smiling. I don't know.
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
yeah. No, it works.
That's a great thing.
But no, that works. And I think that's I think culture would really like that. I mean, not that I want to, go with culture and all that stuff, but I think that's what they need. They still need those badass cops, right? But they also need the cops that can go up to their window and put a smile on their face and give them a ticket at the same time.
Honestly, that's more of, as much as what happens is...
Yeah, that's 95%. Yeah. 98%, 99%
the extremes stand out because they're so extreme, right? In a 20-plus year career, the crazy violence stands out because it's so unusual compared to everyone's life, including your own, right? Even in that profession. But like any profession, you just nailed it on the head, right? This will be a good place to kind of start to close, I think, because it doesn't matter the profession. It's kind of the why behind everything, right? Why am I even here? It's the ability to talk to people as a cop, right? Hey, the reason why I'm here, you called me, basically, or hey, I'm sorry, it sucks. I know we have these red lights for a reason because people are going to get in a car crash if everybody just drives willy-nilly kind of thing. That's why you're the third car to go through the red light. I got to stop somebody at some point. We can't just let it keep going. The point of that is it's like anything else, even like in ministry. Like, hey, the reason why I feel like, the ability to talk, the ability to communicate is going to be the most important thing. So you already nailed it. To start off on the friendly thing. That's policing, by the way, but that's anything. How the individual in authority sets the tone. Think about this. I know it. I'm not doing this just to placate Seth, but I know that many weeks ago, he was dealing with even just like, say, a music issue at church. No big deal. But an individual who maybe doesn't appreciate something, whether it's a cop stopping them or a pastor making a change in a church, it's the same concept. Is if you'll just hear me out and I'll hear you out, kind of a thing. This is let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
The ability to have a conversation and explain why behind something is the first start in any conflict resolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
you got anything to add? Because we're going to finish up.
I mean, I think that's what we need. Those conversations. I think we've all seen that in our culture and stuff, whether that's, racial issues or whether that's gender issues, whether that's issues in law enforcement, issues within the church. Everything starts with a conversation. And I think it's, you guys are kind of putting that onto my generation and Seth and I and stuff, because it's up to us, now to have those conversations. And, I just encourage our listeners to have those conversations, whether that's a conversation needed with your wife, with the boss, with a coworker, with someone you meet. Just have those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's a good thought, because it seems like the younger generation doesn't have that anymore. They don't want to have a conversation. They just want to be mad at you and ignore you.
And use social media. We talked about that last episode to just get their point,
that's perfect.
Get their opinion out.
Great foundation. Yeah.
Right. And it should all be Christ-centered. Let me close. Let me kind of just, my 2 cents is, if you're a believer in Jesus, then go to God in prayer and bring Christ into the conversation before you start the conversation, if that makes sense.
Very good. Yeah. Seth, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back for us as men, humility, making sure that we are under Christ and that we are doing everything we can to follow Christ in this situation. And sometimes that requires us to be more aggressive, but not negatively aggressive, but aggressive towards righteousness, aggressive towards Christ likeness. And that's something that we need to do as men, and to not let culture just get us to not have those conversations, to just stay home and watch TV, but to go out and to be the man that God has for us to be.
I feel like that.
Talking to me?
What?
Yeah.
That's Alan's favorite pastime. Thank you, Nolan, for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Scott and Michelle, thanks for letting us borrow your kid on this episode. We love you guys. We're just messing with you.
Yeah, the opinions expressed on this podcast are not necessarily
They're
that
mostly
of everybody
Seth's.
else. All right, that's it. We're going to wrap it up.
All right, thank you. Be blessed.